Hey Bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are making this really neat looking charcoal and sea buckthorn cleansing balm, just in time for Halloween with this neat orange and black color scheme. A cleansing balm is a sort of solid way to do oil cleansing, and so the bulk of it is going to be oils and butters and thickeners, so things like cetyl alcohol, stearic acid, cetyl alcohol, that kind of thing. Thickens it up to a nice sort of soft balmy consistency, and then it contains some emulsifiers. So in this case we're using a complete emulsifying wax and Polysorbate 80. If you want alternatives, please go down to the description box, click through the blog. I have information on substitutions there, also links to buy the ingredients. These emulsifiers are the cleansing thing. So we massage the balm into our face, all the oil in the balm can pick up all of the sort of oil-soluble stuff on our face, and then when we rinse with water, the fact that there's emulsifiers in there means that it rinses off our skin really, really nicely. There's that other end of that double-ended molecule that can grab that water we're washing with and get rinsed down the drain. So you get a really nice, easy rinse off your face, isn't left feeling oily at all. It gives a really, really nice, gentle, very effective clean. I do a two-part cleansing, so I'll have part one, something like this, an oil-based cleanser, and then part two is something foaming, and I can throw some links for some of my recipes for foaming facial cleansers in the description box below as well. When I'm making oil cleansers, one of my top priorities is making sure that the oils I'm using in it are relatively inexpensive. So this one is mostly safflower oil, and you could use a different sort of lightweight, inexpensive oil that you have on hand, especially if it's one where you've been looking at this being like, you've been sitting on my shelf for quite a while and are probably not going to last much longer. A cleansing balm or a cleansing oil is a great place to use those because they get used up really quickly. Because really what we're doing, it's in contact with our skin for maybe a minute or two before it gets washed down the drain. So this is not the place to whip out your prickly pear seed oil or something like that. This is a great place to use up inexpensive oils. The fun colors in this cleansing balm come from the title ingredients. So the orange comes from some, and by some I mean 1%, sea buckthorn fruit oil. So the fruit oil from sea buckthorn is crazy orange, kind of bordering on red. It's very, very, very vibrant and highly pigmented. It's very rich in carotenoids, but it will stain your skin if used in large amounts. I actually swatch it in the video on my arm so you can see just how orange it is. So we're just using a very little amount of that. And then the black comes from some activated charcoal, and again, there's not very much of this activated charcoal. It really gives a very cool visual punch in the swirls on the top, but as alluring as the idea of an activated charcoal face wash is, I find the reality of washing your face and then your sink every time you use it to be less alluring. So I've kept the amounts down so that your sink and your post face wash sink washing routine can kind of The only kind of tricky part about this cleansing balm is the fancy swirl part, so if you want to skip that, makes a very easy recipe to make. We do need to cool the balm down in an ice bath to give it some viscosity before we do the swirl. I know this because I tried it the other way. I tried being like, oh, we'll just do everything while everything's very liquid, and I ended up with this really gnarly, browny, blacky kind of just cleansing balm. It was not the visual ooh kind of striking I was looking for. It was more of a sort of so yeah, you're definitely going to want to do that. Stir until it has enough viscosity that when you drop the oil dispersed activated charcoal on top, it doesn't just go poof, and you're like, ah, you're not orange anymore, you're gross colored. So that's the only tricky part. It's not hard. Something to note, I used Cocoa Absolute to make this smell like chocolate, which I think is great, but Cocoa Absolute is brown, and so it does kind of muddy the orange tone a bit. I still like the way it turned out, but if you want a really vibrant orange, something like orange essential oil would be a great choice because it's also orange and is not going to kind of muddy your orange sea buckthorn base. But yeah, come on, let's get started. We'll begin by combining all of the ingredients for our heated phase in a small heat-resistant glass measuring cup. So you're going to need 4 grams of Polawax or emulsifying wax NF or another complete emulsifying wax, 2.5 grams of Polysorbate 80, 24.88 grams of safflower oil, half a gram of sea buckthorn seed oil. You might be thinking wow, that's really not very much. Yeah, if you use too much more than this, I definitely find the color comes through on your skin. I'll give you a little teaser here with just kind of what's left. Like it's very, very, very orange. So very little just for kind of coloring the end product and not our faces. 5 grams of castor oil, 8 grams of stearic acid, 3 grams cetyl alcohol, and 1.5 grams of white kaolin clay. Up next is melting everything together. So we're going to pop this in a water bath. So this is a small saucepan that has about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of water in the bottom of it, and a small silicone drink coaster to sort of further insulate our container from the heat. But I'm going to go put this on the stovetop over medium heat for about 30 to 40 minutes to melt everything through. I have found that this one takes a little longer to melt than some other things, so don't be surprised if that happens for you. Once everything is melted through, you can remove your measuring cup from your water bath and set that aside. We're done with that. Give that a bit of a stir. And so we are going to cool this in an ice bath because we want this to gain enough viscosity that we can do our little charcoal decorations without everything just mixing together completely. So it's a bit like making soap, where you want to have something, you want the soap to be viscous enough that you could support a mica swirl. So we'll be cooling it in an ice bath here, just giving it a minute to cool down a little bit, since it's not a great idea to go from something very hot to something very cold. The temperature change there can cause the glass to crack. I'm just gonna set that in there, hooking the handle over the edge, and then we're just gonna stir until it starts to gain a bit of viscosity. Then we'll add our cool down ingredients. So up at the top of the screen there, you can see some vitamin E and some cocoa butter. So we're gonna add some of that, but I just wanted to get this to cool down a wee bit first. So we need 1/4 gram each vitamin E and cocoa absolute. Now for our charcoal swirls, this is a bit of activated charcoal and a little bit of castor oil. I'm just going to kind of dab a little bit of that on top. And we're going to swirl it with a toothpick. And now we just need to leave that to set up. While we're letting our balm cool, we can take a look at kind of how it works here. So you can see the consistency is really gorgeous and smooth and creamy, which is always lovely. Kind of distributes quite nicely on the skin, and then just got a little bit of water from our water bath. I added a couple of ice cubes from the ice bath, so it's not too hot. You can see it works up to a sort of a creamy, low, sort of lathery base there, and then it'll rinse off really gorgeously as well. I typically like to do sort of the final wipe down with a damp microfiber cloth for best results. I also wanted to show you an earlier version of this where I attempted to do the swirl in a slightly different way. For this batch, I poured, I would say, about 80% of the sort of batter in here when it was orange and still quite liquid. I didn't use an ice bath. And then I stirred the activated charcoal into the remaining batter and tried to sort of pour that in a swirl. But as you can see, that really didn't work. The liquid was still far, far, far too liquid, and so everything just mixed together as it cooled. I did get a neat swirl initially, but it did not last. And then as you can see, the charcoal is so much heavier than kind of everything else. It really sunk down to the bottom, and we've got this like really, really dark charcoaly bottom to this cleansing balm and then a really grossly colored top. So that is why we are doing it the way that we did today, kind of inspired by soap making techniques. And there you go, you just made a sea buckthorn and charcoal Halloween cleansing balm. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and do remember to go down to this description box below this video and click through to find this recipe on my blog. On my blog, you'll find everything written out with all the amounts in metric and in percents. You'll find information on how to scale the recipe, how to convert it into imperial if that is your jam, where to buy the ingredients, shelf life, usage, all that good stuff. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.